Hello again, this is Greg with C Sharp Object Orientation Tutorial number 2. Um, I just wanted to go over some class structures that we went over last tutorial, and then follow up with some information about the gets and the sets, and as well as making our own little local data repository and what we can do with it. So let's start off by just going over what we did last time. We made a employee, employee class or object with 3 properties, public properties within it: a first name, a last name, and a title. And then we, in our CS part of the WPF application, we instantiated the employee, or a copy of the employee. Then we added actual data to the first name, last name, and title. And then we just did a little quick debug message box.show to show the first name and the last name. So to go off of that, one thing I wanted to show was one thing I talked about before, was in the last one very briefly, was the get and set concept. One thing here is pretty much the get allows you to get whatever the value is, and the set allows you to set the value, and this is from within or from within the class or from outside the class. So if we actually could get rid of the set of the last name, you'll notice I'm going to get this error down here that says cannot be assigned to. It is read only, which is the employee.last name if you look at the namespace. If you double click on here, this is going to show right here. Okay, so what we'll do here is we're going to comment that out so we get rid of the error. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make this a little more readable. It's going to look more like a routine, but within the routine we'll have the actual get. Okay. And what we're going to do here is we're going to return, return, I am the greatest programmer. I know that's nobody's last name, but it gets the point across. We'll know that something changed is the more important part. So now what I'll do is, after that is saved, okay, you'll notice that I have this comment, the great, commented out, but we're still obviously I don't have the last name there still, but I think we'll get the point here. So employee dot last name, okay, and you'll notice I'm going to spit out the last name, but I have this commented out now, so it should no longer be an issue. I forgot my plus sign to concatenate. And let's play it, and you should see the greatest programmer in the world, whatever I had typed. Yep. Okay, I am the greatest programmer. I forgot my space in there, but you get the point. Let's just put it in there because I am extremely anal retentive with stuff like that, so I'll put my space in there. Okay, so that shows you the point of the get. You can also do the same thing with the set. A lot of times within a set, if you have something like an integer, you may check it to make sure that it is not null, or that it is not string or characters of some sort. You can do that within your set, is do a little quick validation. They usually recommend making routines to do that, though, not to make your sets too intense, because it'll start getting convoluted and hard to read after a while. So I'm going to put this back the way it was. And I'm going to uncomment this. Not that it's going to matter too much for what we're going to do next. And what I'm going to do now is, within our employee class, I'm going to make a public routine that actually fills a little local database kind of thing. It's really just going to be a list, but it will function as our database. So what I'm going to do is use the generic list, because that's the easiest to do at this point, and do employee. And we are going to call this get data. That'll be the name of the routine. We're not going to pass any parameters. And then we'll do list. Let's see, employee and employee data equals new list employee. And then just to shut up the error, we're going to return employee data. Okay, and that should satisfy that. So now what we're going to do here is do employee data dot add, because it's a list. You can use the add routine, and we're going to do new employee. So we're going to make a new object of type employee. Okay, and whoops, actually that's wrong. I'm going to do it like that. Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget how they. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, and what this will allow us to do now is I can assign first name. Oops, first name equals Greg. Oops, comma. Last name equals awesomeness. And title equals awesome engineer. Okay. Oops, and the last one never gets a comma, just so you know. So what we did here is we're adding a new employee, and we're giving it these values below. So what I'm going to do, just to save time here, is I'm going to do a paste and a paste and a paste, just so that we actually have some data here. Some accountant. And let's see, Matthew and coolness. Okay, so we have our 3-item database. What a huge database we have here, but it gets the point across. Okay, so now we have our little database inside of employee. You can make this inside of another class if you want and make it the repository. We'll be going over repositories and other tutorials right now. I'm keeping it simple, I'm using the good old KISS method. And from there, now what we're going to do here is I'm going to get rid of those bad boys. Okay, and what we're going to do here is now we still have employee instantiated right here. And what we're going to do now is do employee dot, and we are going to use the get data routine. Okay, now what we're going to do here is for int counter. I don't like using I. It doesn't get the point across of what you're using it for, so I tend to not use I or X for a for loop, just so you're aware. Counter is less than employee dot. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing this wrong. This should be returning a list, right? So this actually, we need to do this list employee list. Oops. List employee. And again, there are other ways of doing this. I'm just making it a little simpler. And then actually, you know what? The better way of doing this is list, and then we'll do employee. I'm sorry about this. I didn't think this completely through here. Equals new employee. Okay, and then what we're going to do is this is going to be employee list equals, and I'll explain this a little more in a second here. Let me just get us back on track here. Dot count counter plus plus. Okay, and no that, and this will be list count. Okay, and this will be employee list counter. Sorry, that should be counter. Okay. Alright, so what I did here real quick is I made used our employee class, I'm sorry, our employee instantiation of employee. Then I made this other employee list that is instantiating a list of employees. And the reason I did that was because when I do the get data, it's if you hover over it, it's a nice little trick to find out what's going on. You'll see that the part to the left says that we're returning value list employee. Okay, so it'll be a list of employees, and so I need to make sure that it equals out to the list of employees. Otherwise, this isn't going to work. Then I'm just doing a normal for loop with it equaling 0, and while the employee list dot count is greater than the counter, then we do counter plus plus and whatever's inside here. And what I'm doing here is I'm taking the employee list, taking the index, which is the current counter value, dot first name and last name. So now if we run this, we should get everybody's name message boxed out, everybody's information. So we got Greg, last name Awesomeness, Greg, last name Awesomeness, Rebecca, Awesomeness, Matthew, Coolness. Okay, so if you go back over here, you'll notice where we got all that from. And we got 2 Greg Awesomeness, which I forgot I had in there, so sorry about that. But again, it gets the point across, and I hope this tutorial helped out understanding a little more about object orientation and the class structure and what you can do with it. The next one we will probably do a little more on the interface level and repository level and go over that kind of stuff. So I hope you enjoyed, and subscribe if you like. Thanks.